Yeah, I just want to just open it up with the Chiefs.
All right, perfect. Recording started. Sergeant Perry, over to you. And, afterwards we'll do our general membership meeting.
Copy that, sir. I appreciate it. So, good morning, top three. How you guys doing? We have a very, very special opportunity in front of us today. We have 5 2020 Chief Selects that we have that are going to speak to us about their path to getting into the highest enlisted rank that there is we have in the Air Force. I'll start it out with just opening up. Chief Hart kind of started this with you. Reached out to you via Facebook. Just wanted to see if you can spend some time with us and maybe reach out to your other Chief Selects. The idea of today's, meeting to have you guys on is just for you guys to shed some light on, I guess, kind of how you got to Chief. And we all know that there is no one path to Chief, but all of us are inspiring to maybe one day get to where you guys are. So if you guys could maybe start out one at a time, just give us real quick, your brief path that you took to get to where you're at today.
Good morning. I'm Senior Master Sergeant Hart, currently the production superintendent out in 367th Recruiting Squadron. Been in recruiting for about almost 12-ish, 13 years, give or take. Started off and did my EA up there in West St. Paul, Minnesota. From there, did HP out in Smyrna, Georgia. After that, did my flight chief duties in Waco, Texas, where I preceded Sergeant Cone. And then after that, became the pro super out here in 367. So that's just a little background as far as on myself on that portion. Did you ask for something here?
Yes, sir. No, that's perfect, Chief. Chief Cone, what about you, sir?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me on today. So I've only been in AFRS 11 and a half years. Started off EA recruiter, Sedalia, Missouri. Then went to flight chief in Waco, Texas, which seems to be a hot seat for making chief these days. After that, went down to AFRS, was assigned to standardization and training team. While I was there, I actually deployed as an air advisor. Came back. That's when I made senior. Went out to 3-2. Was pro super for 2 years in Nashville, and then I'm currently sitting in a 369 group headquarters and superintendent group operational programs. Been here about 6 months.
All right, good deal. Thanks, Chief. Chief Vogel.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thanks for having me. I've been in recruiting since 2006, so almost 15 years. Started in September. I was recruiter down in Tucson. From Tucson, I went to Hill. I was group ops up there. From Hill, I made master and went to be a flight chief in New Orleans. From New Orleans, I went over to Southern California 362. I was the ops chief and then the senior trainer. And then just like Colin said, I volunteered for that air advisor assignment. But unlike him, I did a full year. He did like 3.5 months or something like that. So I got to call you out, man. You know I do. He did more than that. I'm just kidding. But I did a year in Afghanistan. I served on a senior over there. And now I'm the pro soup here in 4-4 in Dallas, Texas. Where Cone and Hart's old flights were. We cover Waco. And now made chief, so hopefully we'll find out soon where we're going. But that's a little bit about me. Sorry, Cone.
Gotcha. Okay. So now Chief Pitts tells me that he spent some time in Texas, and then I'm starting to see the trend is I need to get to Texas. That's how you make chief. Okay. Chief Pitts, can you give us some insight on yourself, sir?
You've already got the secret. It's the 410 loop. So no, I've been in recruiting 16 years, so I kind of just edged out Vogel there. Came into Bridgeport, Connecticut as an EA recruiter back in 2005, and went on to HP recruiting out in Northern California, Suisun City. Did that for a while. one of the things I always tell people is a lot of this stuff is about timing. And I went on to be a flight chief out in Pittsburgh as a brand new tech sergeant, hadn't even been to NCOA yet. So once again, the timing just really worked out for that. Went on to San Antonio, Texas as the ops chief, and then eventually the senior trainer for 342. A lot of opportunities down there, as we talked about. And then did the same thing. It's kind of a recurring theme here, but I went and became an air advisor over in Afghanistan as well. Got to play over there in the desert for 6 months. Came back, finished out my time at 42, and then came up here to 348 Recruiting Squadron as the production superintendent, where I'm currently at. So that's my story.
Okay. So we got three of the four were air advisors and had the opportunity to deploy in recruiting, which is something that I know, not all of us will get the opportunity to do. So if you guys could think of one thing that you've done during your time, not only maybe in recruiting, but something that you think maybe separated you from your peers, what do you think, of course, outside of the deployment opportunity, what do you think that there's something that you did that allowed you to separate yourself from your peers and almost, maybe get you to that next step?
Well, I can start it off, and I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say this, that it's not about us anymore. When you reach that, that top three, that master sergeant level, it's about your team. It's about your recruiters, your airmen. So you got to make sure you're taking care of your people. When I became a flight chief in New Orleans, I had a line number for master, and I had two master sergeant recruiters that worked for me, and it was very weird. But I learned, we learned to work together. I learned to, be their supervisor, even though they outranked me. But about 2 months prior to me getting that assignment, I got a call from the pro soup, and he told me straight up, he said, I have never seen a more effed up flight in my life. So what had happened was that the flight chief spot was vacant for 2 years. So when I got there, the flight admin was running the flight. So I had to go in and restructure it kind of and start taking care of people because they had nobody to take care of them, look after them. It's not all on me, but because of that, we were, top 10 in the nation the third year I was there. My recruiter got gold badge, Sergeant Roy got gold badge. Other people got a lot of awards. So it's about taking care of your people. You have to, it's not about you anymore. It's not about what you did. It's about what you led your people to do. So that's the big thing. I mean, obviously the deployment helped this year. You said not to talk about that, but that was a big factor this year. I heard on the board, whoever the board chief was big on deployments. But I mean, that's really much it, take care of your people, make them look good. And then in turn, you'll look good.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, then.
You say, what you about to say, Sean? You can say something.
Oh, you go for it. You're on.
No, I was just going to say, I guess I can echo the words of Sergeant Vogel, Chief Vogel as well, as far as taking care of your people. Because once, I believe I said this before, especially once you get into that flight chief position in recruiting, it's no longer about you. It's about your people and taking care of them, because ultimately they're going to be the reason why you get promoted to the next level, if that's in your cards. So just having a solid team, and it don't have to be perfect. You don't have to win, like I said, all the awards, but just taking care of them and putting them in the best situation to be successful. In turn, I believe is going to, put us where we need to be at. So.
Yeah, the only thing I would say in addition to that is as much as you need to go out and find opportunities to set yourself apart from everybody else, you've got to make the most out of those opportunities as well. So there's many times throughout my career where I can kind of pinpoint some things where there was probably a situation where I had a really good opportunity to fail and tried to figure out a way that I could exceed the expectations of whoever put me into that position. So, 3 of us deployed. I know there's a couple other guys that might be on here that has deployed in the recruiting industry, and I can tell you there was a huge opportunity for us just to kind of sit there and keep a seat warm while we were in Afghanistan because nobody knew what we were supposed to be doing. So for the few of us, the guys that are on here that we've kind of discussed our experiences. we just made it a point to get out there and make a difference. You know what I mean? If we were going to be away from our family for 6 months or a year for Vogel's situation, I was going to make sure that I was making a difference, and it was going to be a difference for them and a difference for me. You know, I talked about coming in to be a tech sergeant flight chief with the 3 master sergeants that I had over me. I was in the same situation as Vogel was. You know, I walked in that door and they could all told me, "Hey, look, you sit over there and we'll take care of this." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But luckily they were really cool, you know, really cool guys, and I had a really good flight out there, and everything just kind of worked. But you know, it's kind of not compelling those guys, but kind of showing them that you're going to give everything you got to them. And all you ask for in return is for them to pull their weight and do what you ask. And then, you know, things end up working out, and it worked out for us. We ended up being top flight in the nation, and, you know, blue suit and gold badge and all that kind of, you know, happy stuff. But it was because everybody just kind of bought into the system. Like, hey, let's just pull our weight, let's do our job, and go home at the end of the day and hang out with our families. Don't chase awards or anything like that. Let's just do our job and roll out at the end of the day. And things just kind of fell in place.
Makes sense. Chief Kong?
Yeah, one of the biggest things for me was being humble, understanding that humility piece, and understanding that my role on a team isn't to always have all the answers and be that guy that knows everything. Understanding that sometimes your most rookie recruiter can have some of the best ideas, can be hard for a lot of flight chiefs to deal with initially. But as a leader, if you can grow in that capacity and you can learn to understand and allow other people to come up with ideas, sometimes if it's might even be the wrong idea, but allow your team to explore different ways of getting the mission done, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, and unethical. You're actually going to set yourself up for creating a stronger team environment. And like my peers have said, that team is what's most important at the end of the day. That team is going to make or break where you go and your success. So while you're focusing on them, they're working every day for you as well.
Gotcha. I actually think we got a question from the field. So let me throw this at you guys. How have you used, this is from Master Sergeant Adrian Pope. How have you used your formal or informal education to impact your teams or units? And I'll elaborate on that question a little bit. I think that's a really good question. You know, as a young master sergeant or, you know, young senior NCO, we're taught, you know, none of us have made senior or made chief. And so we're just trying to do what we see you guys doing, you know, like, oh man, you know, Chief Hart did this. Okay, that helped him, you know, Chief Cone did this. Let me try that. You know, we're all pretty much just trying to make gumbo and figure out what's going to work for us. So how, you know, how do you guys, or can someone speak on that, you know, the education piece and things like that?
I like the informal part of that question, because what you learn is really on you, right? So if you are kind of sitting back and you're looking for other people to find the answers for you, you know, that's a big thing as a flight chief is don't answer all the questions for your people. You know, make them go find the answers, because they're going to learn. And so that's, I think, what I like to kind of hang my hat on is if people come to me, I would hope to have the answer, but obviously I don't have every one. But better damn be sure I'm going to go find that answer for you and make sure that we get an answer in quickly. You know what I mean? Not just, hey, I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. You know, I want to get that answer back to them so that they can complete what they're doing. But that's my view of informal education, is just myself being involved in going and finding those answers so that I can be the expert to somebody else when they come and ask me the same question.
Okay. Yes, sir. Makes sense.
To add a little bit to that too as well, I think the question was as far as with education part of it.
Yes.
And me, as far as getting my degrees and going to school, was tied to, you know, being in HR. So a lot of things that I did learn, I tried to apply some of those different concepts, because it all ties into it as far as what our job is. So I try to think of those little different ideas and see if that could help us to be successful as far as when I was a flight chief and as a pro soup, things like that.
Right. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, I did the same thing as Chief Hart. I'm a class away from my MBA with emphasis in or concentration in marketing. But everything I've done with my undergrad and with my grad degree now, always trying to bring it back to the business. And there's nothing against doing a degree that's outside of the HR realm. You've got to look at what your personal long-term goals are. If you don't have any inspiration to do HR in any capacity outside of the Air Force, then pursuing that degree just for the sake of pursuing the degree might not be the best interest in your time. So go after the degree that's going to set you up for what your goal is, even if it's outside. But if it's inside of the scope of what we do every day, you can then bring that value back to the Air Force and apply it. So regardless of what my classes were, I was always looking at, can I bring this back to the enterprise? How can I use this? Even though we're talking civilian HR and civilian marketing experiences, how can this benefit the field?
Yeah, that makes sense, Chief.
Yeah, this is the only one that hadn't answered this question. I'll say something. I too have my MBA in HR, and I got all the other degrees, all the CCFs, whatever, bachelors, all that stuff. But I don't think, I've never sat down with one of my people or anybody and said, hey, you need to get your degree. Sure, I've given expectations or suspensions to take a class or whatnot. But honestly, in all reality, that could be just to fill a box, right? Because if it sets you apart from your peers if you have a degree and they don't. I do like to use, some of the stuff I learned in my master's program when I'm talking about things, but let's be honest, I don't remember half of the master's program. So I do think it's a lot to, check a box, make sure you got your degree, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because a lot of this, the Air Force is here, for 20 years of your life or 30 years of your life. You're going to get out and do something else. So you want to have that degree that the Air Force is paying for to go out and get that, get another job or whatever you want to do. I wholeheartedly agree with Sean or Sergeant Pitts on his informal education stuff that, don't always answer the question for your people. Have them, find the answer themselves. I got a couple of my flight chiefs on here that I saw, and I try to tell them, to find the answer themselves or have the recruiter find the answer. I got one on here, I think Sergeant Dedig's on here. I think that's his name. And this isn't this subject. I'm kind of changing subjects here, but also don't be a yes man, because he, or yes woman, he made me think of this, because don't always, like Sergeant Cohn said, as long as it's not illegal, unethical, or immoral, get the job done and everything will play out like it's supposed to. Don't always be a yes man, because that's the status quo. Do what's right for your people. Take care of your people. And I'm sorry I changed subjects on you, but seeing his name reminded me of that. So that's all I got to say about that.
Yes, sir. No, it's your show, Chief. You can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. No worries. So I want to transition and ask you all a question that a lot of us have been talking about in the top three, and that's writing. The Air Force has transitioned to where, even to make Master Sergeant, you no longer take a test. It's all about what's in your records. And if we as senior NCOs can't properly capture, whatever it is that we want to show or tell the board members, it may or may not put us behind. Can you all speak to how important you think it is to advance our writing skills sooner than later?
I think it's absolutely critical. Like two of my other fellow chiefs on here, I came into a flight chief job as a tech sergeant, and that was only after 3 short years of being an EA recruiter. I became a flight chief. So I left CE, wasn't a supervisor there, became a recruiter, wasn't a supervisor there, and then became a flight chief. And instantly, I've got to start writing EPRs. And they were a hot mess my first couple go arounds at it. But fortunately, I got a lot of good feedback. Maybe felt a little pointed and critical at the time, but it helped me develop my skill set. After I moved out of flight chief, I then moved into headquarters AFRS, where I supervised nobody again. And instead of sit there and let those skills diminish and perish, I actually was looking for more opportunities to write. So I I would always draft my EPR. I thought that was something important to me. I'm a firm believer in nobody loves me more than me. So I'm going to draft up my first EPR just so I can get that feedback. But I wanted to be in the habit of writing 1206s for the unit, for the section. I didn't want any of those skills to go away. Now, I wouldn't always submit those straight to Chief Pinnock was my supervisor at the time. I wouldn't even submit half of them to Chief Pinnock. I would submit them to Chief Edgar when he was in the building, the other chiefs, Chief Trahan, and just asking for feedback. And that's all it was just exposing myself to a bunch of different styles of writing, getting that feedback, taking the good and the bad away from it, and then moving forward. Moving into a pro super role, it was more critical for me to get on the same language as what my boss was looking for, finding out what their priorities were, what they were looking for in an EPR, and then us collaborating together. And I think if I would have done that more as a flight chief and understood what the pro soup was looking for, what the chief was looking for, and the commander, what their languages were, it would have set me up for success earlier on in my career.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I agree with him on that. Look for opportunities to put your people in for awards. Always, every quarter, you should be writing a 1206 on somebody. There should never be a quarter that goes by that one of your people is not recognized or at least recognized by you with a 1206. That's another opportunity for you to sharpen your writing skills, for your people to sharpen your writing skills, and for, more of that, meat to get on your EPR. Because if your people are winning awards or getting promoted or whatever, that looks good on you. That's part of taking care of your people. So take that time to write those 1206s, or make them prettier, make them right, and send them up to group to make sure that they get recognized. I'm also a firm believer, whether right or wrong, just like Chief Cohn said, people should be writing their own EPRs and sending them to you, sending you a draft. And then you make them better and sit down with them and give them feedback, or give them feedback after the fact, or just, fix it up and tell them this is what I did, whatever. But nobody, like he said, nobody's going to take care of yourself more than yourself. So if you're not writing your own EPR and putting what you think should be on there, then your flight chief might not be able to do that because he or she's got 6 or 7 EPRs to write. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself, make sure that you're practicing those EPRs, and make sure you're sitting down, or they are, and make sure you're sitting down with them and giving them feedback on their EPRs.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the only thing I got to add to that stuff is you got to figure out ways to write to show the board why it's hard to put somebody in the Air Force, right? So if I compare one of my recruiters out here that puts in a fully qualified position, and then they're looking at a package where an enlisted recruiter is putting in 70 people a year, the board's sitting here like, okay, well, who cares that this guy put in one guy? Why is this guy shit hot, right? So,
Right.
excuse my language, but so the deal is that you've got to write, what you actually had to go through, and what pain you had to go through in order to find that one person. For that guy that put in 70, every other enlisted recruiter, might put in a bunch of people as well. This is what we try to explain to our recruiters, everybody in our squadron each year is, everybody is going to put their best stuff on an EPR. Everybody's going to be a great recruiter, and they're going to have huge impacts on the command and the squadron and the group and everybody else. But what is going to set you apart from everybody else? And what's going to set you apart is those little odds and ends that you're doing, getting involved with the base, getting involved with top 3, getting involved with AFSA. Those things will set you apart as well. But that work stuff, you have to separate yourself as well. And it's not always going to be awards. You might sit in, number 2 and not get any of the big accolades that, number 1 got. So you got to try to figure out how to write this stuff to show that you did more than your peers, to make sure that you were successful, your squadron was successful, and so on. So I can't go over how to do that for SW and EA
Yes,
and everybody else. But at the same time, it's really all about not waiting until 2 days before your EPR is due to your flight chief,
yes,
before you start writing it, or due to the pro super, whoever. So give yourself time, and 1206 is a great way to do it, because you're writing those things throughout the year, and they're being edited and polished up and all that kind of stuff as they go forward. And so at the end of the year, if you can get those copies of those polished up 1206s you've got great bullets that you can just throw on an EPR and be good to go.
Sir.
Man, I don't really got nothing to say. But I will say this though: never pass up an opportunity, especially when it comes to 1206s or things like that, to not write a 1206, because those 1206s does help when it comes to writing EPR. So regardless if you win or lose, never pass up an opportunity to write for your people. So that's just my biggest thing.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hey,
Well,
one thing I want to add before you move on, because Sergeant Pitts
yes,
got
sir.
me going in that right direction, talking about how do you make your EPR stand out? And within AFRS, we're really good about showing how we're meeting goal and how we're bringing in people. But you've got to remember, when you're looking at the board composition, there's maybe only one person that's an 8R on that board. And it could even be that it's a cross-flow 8R chief that's sitting on that board and hasn't grown up and understand the language of what we're talking about. So we've got to be really deliberate to make sure that we're putting stuff on our EPRs that stands out universally. And one of the easier ways to do that that's going to have more impact is look at what the national defense strategy is and look at what work you're doing and how are you getting after some of the priorities on that strategy. And maybe you're not doing anything that you can directly relate to that national defense strategy, but walk it down the line a little bit. Go down and look at what the Air Force priorities are. Look at what the Chief of Staff priorities are, the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force priorities, or even down to AATC or AFRS. Those are the impacts that are going to speak across the board that's going to get the attention of that colonel that's sitting there and that other chief that has no 8R experience whatsoever.
Good deal. Okay. I think that's great advice. So I think the last question I'll throw at you all is, as a young airman, I was always told, if you don't have an Article 15, you ain't making chief. And the thought and the premise behind that was, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna make errors. You have to show that, hey, I messed up and I learned from that and I grew from that. So I want to ask you guys a question that's a little bit different. Can you tell us about something, that you feel like in your career, and it doesn't have to be like, I got Article 15 or whatever, but something maybe in your career that you have done, that you have learned from, and that made you a better, or put you in a better position, or made you, or that's going to make you a better chief? I see Chief Cohen already. He's ready to go on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the biggest ways that I learn is from my failures. And I've vocalized this a couple of times when I was teaching the flight chief workshop, but my biggest failure as a leader was when I was an interim flight chief. And Sergeant Walker was privy to some of this because he was one of my recruiters at the time when I was an interim flight chief. So I went from being peers with my entire team to instantly being the boss. And we were a high producing flight. So I was on my guys to keep producing. This is back in the day when you had to go get your own PJs and everything else. So I had one recruiter that was really good at doing SW recruiting. All of a sudden his numbers started dropping off. And, with all my infinite wisdom and experience from being in AFRS for 2 years at the time, well, I figured the problem was that I wasn't giving him enough expectations. So I just kept on piling on work. And that kept going over the course of a couple of weeks, and then instantly something snapped. We had a very heated phone call, and I heard a crashing noise over the phone. Turns out my recruiter was throwing his chair across his office, and the next words out of his mouth is, "You SOB, you have no idea my mom's dying right now."
Oh man!
So admitting my failure, I got blind to production numbers early on. I lost sight of the fact that the person behind that badge is a person and is going through real stuff every day. So fortunately, that wake-up call course corrected where I was in my path. I'm happy to say now that recruiter and I are really good friends. He's actually an Air Reserve recruiter right now. And hell, I've been sending referrals to him a lot, but I thank him to this day for that wake-up call and that opportunity for me to reflect and get that feedback that I needed, albeit later than I needed it, but I still received it.
Yes, sir. Wow.
All right. I'll go next, I guess. I agree with Sergeant Cohn there. You got to know what your people are going through. Make sure you sit down with them, even if you're not doing feedbacks with them, because we all know that's just let's be honest, that's to fill the block. But the real feedback is coming when you're, talking to your people and sitting down face to face with them, having lunch with them, whatever you're going to do, riding in a car with them to one of their recruiters, whatever. But know your people. Don't forget that they're a person, like Sergeant Cohn said. I'll get a little, not too personal, but back in 2012, I'm not going to tell y'all why or how or what happened, but on Christmas Day of 2012, I got arrested. Okay. That was when I had a line number for master, had an assignment for New Orleans to be the flight chief. So I got arrested. The investigation came out. It wasn't, too big of a deal. So I kept my line number, didn't get an Article 15 or I would have lost my line number. I did get put on a UIF, and they did give me a 3 EPR in 2013. So that EPR or that situation opened my eyes, and made me want to be a better leader. And I do think that made me a better leader. So the old adage of if you don't have an Article 15, you can't be a good leader is true in some sense. It just depends on what the Article 15 or what the punishment or whatever you got is for. If you beat your wife or something, then no, you need to go. Anyway, I digress. So but like I said, my team down in New Orleans, when we got together and we were, a tight team, that helped me overcome that. Still got a medal out of that assignment. And the big thing was my wife. She's not here with me, so I me keep going. If it wasn't for her, I probably would still be in the Air Force. But so I guess my point of the story is there are ways to overcome things that happen to you in your past. Everything happens for a reason. I wholeheartedly believe that. So just take what you get. If you mess up, you mess up. Take it on the chin. Keep going. Push forward. Never go backwards. If you keep pushing forward, you'll be fine. You'll make it to the top or make it to whatever goal you have. Just don't give up.
Yes, sir. Hey, thanks for sharing that, Chief.
I guess I can go next because I was looking through my book of all the mistakes I've made, and I'm trying to figure out which one is the best one. But I will tell you, like the last one the major mistake that I took or had or did was back in 2014, where I did let the mission of grind and getting out the Air Force mission as an HP recruiter take over my health and welfare. And as being young at the time, like for most folks, we can, start getting in shape and start getting ready for a PT test in about 2 weeks and you're good to go. Unfortunately, I got caught slipping. You know what I mean? And I came up on the wrong end of that PT test. And I ain't gonna tell you, it hurt me as far as person, because I don't like to fail. Granted, I failed plenty of times as far as, throughout my career, but as far as I felt like I let a lot of people down with that. So with that said, I could have easily used the excuse of, man, I'm working too hard or this and that. But ultimately, it still fell on me to know, be able to do both, do my job and do what the Air Force requires me of getting after my fitness. And so from that point on, I said I never put myself in that situation again. So I, try to always monitor and make sure that I'm at least doing something. So for me, and I'm glad that, and when it did happen, I would say this, how they say, if you fail your test, your career is over. So you got to keep in mind that was going through my head as a brand new sergeant, all that, everything that I would say probably in the operational Air Force was probably true. I was just praying and hoping that didn't happen to me. But I was ready to accept whatever came with it, though.
Right.
And
yes, sir.
So I got paperwork. I got touched, though. You know what I'm saying? I will say that. But I was able to, eventually, of course, bounce back. And I guess everything all turned out pretty well for me.
Yes, sir.
But never give up, though. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. I appreciate you sharing that, Chief. Chief Pitts.
Yeah, so I'll kind of attack it from a different angle. and believe me, I made tons of mistakes in my career as well. But you know, I look at it as every time there's a mistake made or there's a failure, it always kind of produces an opportunity, right? So not necessarily the fact that you know you got nowhere to go but up, but at the same time, you can capitalize on a lot of things that you see. And what I've kind of seen over time is, you know, we've all had those leaders that we've worked for where you've kind of seen what they do and you see how they react, and it's either toxic or it's just not desired, or it's kind of demotivating, kills the morale, all that kind of stuff. So I've learned probably the most from those type of people. You know, everybody talks about the greatest flight chiefs they ever had, and I've got one that's still in AFRS that's one of my big time mentors. But honestly, I've learned most from those bad leaders that I've worked for, because it's shown me what I don't want to do, and what does not work. So instead of, you know, getting into arguments with them or being demotivated or you know, having that bad relationship with that person, it's almost like you got to keep that person a little bit closer, just so that you can make it through that time frame. But at the same time, learn, take a lot of notes on that person as well, and put that into your box to where when you become a leader, you're going to make sure you don't make those same mistakes. So I'll leave that there.
Yes, sir. Good deal. Well, Chief, so again, I just want to say thank you for coming on, taking the time to share with us not only, you know, the good of how you got to being a chief, but also the bad. And I know a lot of times we don't talk about that stuff, but like Chief Pitt said, we do learn from the good and the bad of the leaders, you know, that are in front of us. And I wanted for us to have an opportunity to learn, you know, from not only the good, but, you know, from what you all feel like maybe the mistakes that you made in your career. So, you know, hopefully we can use that to help someone not make that same mistake. I appreciate you all spending time, you know, spending the last 30, 40 minutes with us, imparting wisdom on us. We really, truly appreciate it. And can't thank you all enough, you know, for what you're doing for us. And we are looking up to you. And again, congratulations on making chief. And hopefully the rest of us will get there one day. All right.
All right. Before everybody hangs up, meeting's not over yet, but definitely from the council, we do want to thank all of you, Chief Hart, Chief Cohn, Chief Vogel, Chief Pitts. I know 3 out of the 4 of you personally, and we definitely appreciate those words of wisdom. Y'all have a lot of experience, not just in the Air Force, but in recruiting service. So definitely some solid leadership advice. I do want to pass it over to Sergeant Walker to speak on behalf of our president for his president remarks, and then we'll continue on with the rest of the meeting. Sergeant Walker, over to you.
You're muted, Walt.
All right, thanks, Sergeant Perry, and thanks Wayne for sending it over to me. Thanks Sergeant Perry for putting this together and getting everything set up for us today. As we know, top 1% makes Chief Master Sergeant. In December, the Air Force selected 9 of our senior master sergeants for the promotion of chief, and it isn't every day that we get 5 of those to come speak to our top 3 organization. So I just want you chiefs to know that we definitely listen to what you said. We're going to put all that into perspective, the writing skills, the mentorship, how to take care of our team. We know that there's a reason that you all were selected. You all took 5 seconds to give yourself props on what you've done in your career and spent the rest of the time building us up and making sure that we're set up for success. So we can't thank you enough for that. We know you all are going to go on to be awesome superintendents, and hopefully we're senior NCOs can somewhat echo what you've said and perform to your expectations. With that said, the second half of our mentorship meeting is our general membership. I will send it back to Sergeant Parson, and we'll get the general membership meeting started.
All right, so first order of business, I want to pass it over to Sergeant Canella to give our Treasury report. Sergeant Canella.
Yes, so we currently have $3,594 in the account, and our membership is up to 109 new people this year. So a big increase from when we started. That's all I got with the Treasury report.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I believe we started with 50, so we've over doubled our membership. That's a testament to everyone in this organization. So we definitely appreciate everything y'all are doing. As we've said from the beginning, this is our top 3. So if there's anything that you're seeing that's not happening that you want to happen, please communicate it with your councils and your committees. And if there's anything that you feel is very effective, please give us that feedback as well so that we can continue to do it. Sergeant Perry, if you want to give any updates on the mentorship committee, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. We are working on getting a command chief on from outside of AFRS to give us some insight on the Spec Ops world, where they're going, and how recruiting can be helpful and continue to push their mission and make sure that we have the right people in the right places at the right time. More information to come on that. We haven't secured that individual just yet, so I don't want to let the cat out the bag, but we are working on that and hope to bring it to you guys in March.
Awesome, thanks, sir. Over to the awards committee, Sergeant Holobar.
Hey everybody, we just wrapped up our last board from this last quarter. If you didn't see the email, the award winners are our team award, the Chief Master Sergeant SPC award went to D-Flight up in the 341st. And then our individual Rising Star award was Tech Sergeant Micah Paulino from the 367th. A lot of great competition over there. We had about, I think, 25 nominations across the 2 different boards. Really good stuff. But don't be discouraged if you didn't get there. I've seen some folks kind of get put up again, and it's getting better and better. So really happy with the products I'm seeing. So get ready for our next board in April to be submitting those nominations. You can hit me up or Sergeant Prouty, the other awards committee chair, if you guys have any questions about contact. It is just a narrative. You're not writing any bullets or anything like that, so not too hard. But that's all I got.
Awesome, thank you, sir. And definitely congratulations again to those award winners. Over to Sergeant Manuel for Ways and Means.
Thank you, Sergeant Parson. Just 2 things. The book club is ongoing, so continue to check Facebook for upcoming events with the books being read and discussed monthly. And the last thing is that your AFRS Top 3 is planning a PES for the end of April. We don't have dates or topics set yet, so if you do have an idea of something that you want to see, or if you want to be a part of that and actually lead a session, then have something that would be helpful and relevant, please reach out to us and let us know. Thanks.
Awesome, definitely. Like we said, this is our top 3. Please get involved. You don't have to be a committee member, a council member in order to get involved. We are definitely looking not only for information for what we should be doing, but also for people to help us out with that. So please reach out to any of us that you see on here, and we can get you pointed in the right direction to help us out with that. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Sergeant Walker, for closing president remarks, if there's anything else that you missed.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you again to everybody that made it to our February Top 3 membership and mentorship session. We hope to see you all on again in March, and more to come on our Facebook platform with what to expect for our March mentor and our upcoming PES.
All right, thanks, sir. With that, definitely want to give anyone an opportunity to offer feedback, throw anything out there before closing. Is there anything that anyone else wanted to kind of throw out? Any ideas, any crosstalk, anything at all before we shut this general membership meeting down? All right, we got a lot of cameras off, so I can't see any lips moving. Nothing heard. So with that, I'm going to motion to close.
Second.
All right, it's been seconded. Our February general membership meeting is ending. Thank you all for attending, and please reach out with any questions, comments, or concerns. Y'all have a great day.